All right. Good day, everyone, and welcome to the Backbase webinar titled Banking 2025. So today I'm here accompanied by Barry de Leeuw.
Hey, Tim.
Hey, Barry. And we're going to be running you through different types of material today. So first of all, we have a set of, let's say, topics we would like to introduce you to, which we believe are the pillars for becoming a relevant bank in 2025. And on top of that, we're also going to show you a few demos that we believe really hit it home. So that's going to be the context for today. As always, you can mention us on Twitter, that's @Backbase. At the same time, if you look at your GoToWebinar panel, you can basically ask questions. And in the meantime, during the session, we will review if we can answer those questions and address them immediately. If not, we have a QA section at the end of the webinar to address any outstanding questions that might be there. As always, let's make it as interactive as possible. So if you do have any, let's say, intriguing questions or anything else you would like to raise, please use your GoToWebinar panel for that as you go. All right, so let's get started. So first of all, digital disruption. We talk about it all the time, but in reality, it's not really a new topic, right, Barry?
No.
So one of the questions that we've asked here internally is, who still remembers Napster? I'm not sure if you remember Napster, Barry.
Yeah, even though I was only 8 years old, I still remember how I was downloading.
Sure, yeah. I was also still very young, but basically in the 90s, Napster was a music downloading piece of software, which was peer-to-peer based, which at that moment was a massive digital disruption, and the music industry was basically upside down. Even one of my favorite bands, Metallica, was filing a lawsuit against Napster, given that they saw that this would literally kill their business. We're now talking about the 90s and a very old example, almost, Napster. But in reality, this is where digital disruption started, right? It started in the music vertical, in photography, in video rental. But only by now, and we're now in 2018, you see that those disruptions actually came to scale and are basically here to stay. And it's not in the name of the Napsters and the other players from the old days, but it's basically the Spotifys, it's the Netflixes. And those businesses only became, let's say, viable and mature in the past decades, basically the decade that we're living in currently. So if you look at digital disruption, you basically find that over the different decades, you see more and more categories that are being digitally disrupted. Like in the 2005 years, you see that print media was attacked, or disrupted, if you will. Same thing with TV and cable, as well as the travel business. Now, the further on you drag this type of digital disruption, you see that in 2015, that's when it also started hitting our ecosystem, basically banking and insurance. If you think about the story that I just shared about Napster, it basically takes a few decades before it truly materializes in the new way of doing business. So if you look at the trajectory that we're currently in digital banking, you basically are asking yourself the question, where do you want to be in 2025, given that we're now in the middle of this digital disruption? So this is really the topic for today. In that, we call it Banking 2025. And in identifying, let's say, that end state vision, we effectively have 4 different pillars that we believe that any digital first organization or any digital first bank should really look into and invest into. And that's going to be the topic for the webinar for today. Before we go there, if you look at Banking 2025, you indeed find that this decade, it will have a serious impact. First of all, if you look at the graph that's on the screen, you effectively find on the y-axis market share, which is 100% until 0, and on the x-axis time. What you first of all see is that the incumbent business models are under attack. And right now, we're seeing that there's a tipping point. That means that the incumbent business models are not really effective anymore. And at the same time, we're all waking up to the reality that something needs to happen. We need to make a serious move. Given that we're now at that tipping point, the conversation is also really there right now. And that's, of course, where Backbase is very much in the middle of. So what are the options? So first of all, you can be a bold mover, or maybe you already are a bold mover, and many of our customers are indeed in that category, where you basically attack and become an agile incumbent, or you become digital first and you really reorganize yourselves. That means that you have a shot at becoming a new digital-first organization, or digital-first bank, if you will. The second option that you have is to transform yourself into a niche market and basically accept that you cannot play at all the different spectrums of the business anymore, but are really going to niche out for one specific area of customer segment or product segment. The third option is not that beautiful. It basically means that you cannot really respond, you don't have the capacity or the capability, and you will ultimately fail. Now that's relatively black and white on this overview over here. The real reality we see happening in the boardrooms is that typical banks are more afraid to be commoditized or marginalized to just being a system of record, right? So net on this slide, we see that this decade, this move is going to happen. You will find that there's new digital-first business models that will succeed. Some are just going to focus on a specific niche, and others will ultimately not be able to adapt and become irrelevant. So banking 2025, let's make it happen. What does that actually mean? It means that given where we've been in 2015, where you were basically running your banking business as you have always done, where digital was more of a topic on the side, how do we actually move digital to being the real business model that you're executing? So how do you become digital first? So let's first get some inspiration from the best. This slide might be familiar to many of you, but in reality, the repetition actually makes sense. These players in the field are really nailing it in terms of being digital first across all the different tangents of the business. So yes, it is the Amazons, the Ubers, the Netflixes, and the Instagrams of this world. These types of providers, these types of players, whether they're more, let's say, product sales focused like Amazon initially, or more service focused like Uber, these brands really deliver a 10x better experience. And in doing so, they're not just building a cool application that's solving a set of problems, but they're also organized in a certain way to truly digital first, not only from a technology perspective and a solution perspective, but also the leadership, the culture, the way they're organized, and the way they experiment. So the 10 times better rule applies to many other things than just the technology that they're executing on. But basically, this is our North Star vision, right? We want to be able to operate like these platform businesses that we're illustrating here. So what are these guys doing? Effectively, number one is they are truly removing friction and really solving pain points that the typical end consumer will face in their daily life. So for Uber, the typical pain points, as you will see on top of the slide, and I couldn't even imagine something else at this moment, to be honest, getting a regular taxi is quite cumbersome, right? By now I'm used to Uber, so actually walking outside in the street here in Amsterdam and getting a taxi by hailing a taxi, for me would be a weird, let's say, experience. But what the guys at Uber really nailed is the pain points such as street hailing, understanding the price of your taxi, when does it actually show up, how do I arrange the payment, can I trust the driver, all those different types of friction points they identified in the customer journey and they really solved in their application. And of course, all of this driven by seamless user experience across any type of digital channel. So their solution is really, there's a friction, there are pain points, and they truly address them with the application that they brought to life. The second ingredient that we believe is really strong is the fact that they're smartly leveraging platform capabilities. So if you listen closely to that statement, it basically means that they're not building everything on their own. They're reusing and embracing platforms that are already out there, that have certain capabilities that they can basically assemble into an experience that solves the problem. That means that, for instance, for navigation, they're using Google Maps. So they didn't deliver their own maps capability. Similarly, for data and server management, they're of course partnering with a player like Amazon, with AWS. Payment providers, they always use the local payment rails that are most effective in that country. There's even a set of countries where you can pay in cash, just because it makes more sense in that society, which could be cash driven. And of course, access to users, they're leveraging the bigger platforms out there, like the iOS platform and the Android platform. So if you look at this, you effectively find that Uber is really leveraging everything that's already out there and using that to drive a certain solution by assembling those capabilities in a very smart fashion. So the game plan is effectively really solve problems, customer jobs to be done, and leverage platforms in doing so. And if you look at that from, let's say, more of a functional overview, what would that look like? you basically find on the top tier where the end customer has a certain application that he or she might be using. It's all about solving real customer problems. Make it frictionless, make it fast, really focus on the customer journey. Below that, you see that we need to orchestrate this customer journey. We really need a platform to assemble all of these different capabilities and all of these different journeys to actually drive that experience. And in order to do so properly, there's a whole ecosystem of APIs from both your existing systems, fintech providers, platform players out there like Google, Facebook, those types of players, as well as PSD2 or open banking types of APIs, which allows you to basically put together a whole wide variety of capabilities that can drive any type of journey. So if you look at this picture, you're basically looking at what a platform like Backbase delivers at the end of the day. We allow you to get the job done frictionless and fast. Think, for instance, onboarding, which we will demo later, by leveraging a digital-first platform, a digital-first banking platform, for instance, where we're consuming all of the capabilities coming out of an API ecosystem. So that's the game plan: solve real problems and leverage platforms and capabilities that are already out there. Do not reinvent the wheel. All right, so we basically have a serious challenge, Barry. We need to cross the chasm. And that effectively means that the real question becomes, how do we actually move from that old way of thinking and that old business model that we have all the way towards this new digital-first business model? And how do we ensure that we end up being the leader and don't take, let's say, a 25% reduction in market share as a given, right? Now, there's a few thought patterns that I would like to briefly go through before we hit the demo scenarios. And one of the big paradigm shifts is really become customer first. Think outside in. That basically means that on the left of this slide, you see that the classic approach would be to look at your internal capabilities, your internal legacy applications, your internal systems of record, everything that you currently have, which is typically also described as silos or separate applications, and then see what you can achieve by using those applications and web enabling them or mobile enabling them and using them in a particular customer journey. That means that you start thinking out of the limitations that you have nowadays. The Backbase rationale is really to go customer first and basically perceive it from the outside in, meaning start with the customer journey first of all. What should the user experience look like? What should the journey be? And what do we then need to assemble going forward to actually orchestrate this journey properly? That's really the outside in approach, and that's a paradigm shift, which also your organization needs to get used to, right? Secondly, think big, act small. Sounds like a massive cliche on this slide, but in reality, it's all about running small experiments of, let's say, 1 to 2 weeks, in which you identify a certain set of problems, given a certain context, given a certain user that wants to, let's say, have a seamless journey. You design that experience using prototype mechanisms. Think of, let's say, modern tools like Sketch, which allows you to, in a certain set of days, crank out a full-blown prototype and actually validate this against the target customer. When that is validated, and there's been a little bit of a feedback loop already, you go towards engineering, and in engineering, you actually start leveraging the platform capabilities that you have available, everything that's available in the ecosystem, your known processes and the people that you have, after which you deliver and analyze what you've actually delivered to the market. And this loop, although you can indeed think big, act small, it's all about driving very small experiments, going for minimum viable products that you can actually release within 2 to 4 weeks, if not faster. And that thinking, if you will, is also a massive step that organizations need to go through to actually come up with solutions that work without thinking in a waterfall approach. In order to give it a little bit more, let's say, make it a bit more alive, we've prepared for you a certain set of demo journeys that my colleague Barry will take you through. So yeah. Take it away, Barry.
Happy to do so. So there's a couple of pain points that we want to transform into these seamless journeys, and there's a couple of examples that I prepared for you guys today. We have the onboarding example that some of us might already be familiar with, but nevertheless, it's a topic that we cannot emphasize enough, I would say. Mm-hmm. We have this aggregated overview. You already mentioned PSD2, open banking initiative. So this is something, how are you going to combine it in a digital customer experience? And then last but not least, might look like an obvious one, but I still know a couple of banks here in the Netherlands that do not provide me with the capacity to manage my cards, whether that is credit or debit cards. It can be quite a painful topic. So what I did, Tim, is actually I stole a little bit of your format from the Uber slide to identify 4 problems. The first one is becoming a new customer at one of the banks. There's a couple of pain points there. So when is the last time that you filled in like a form online?
Yeah, let's say a few months ago.
A few months ago. Oh, that's not too bad then.
Yeah.
But quite a lengthy one, probably, right? So this is the common denominator. The quite lengthy forms, they also don't provide me with a way to continue later. So in this case, I have to complete it all at once. Uploading documents, cumbersome. I need to go to a branch, physical interaction to make that happen.
Yeah.
So, like I said, some of you might already be familiar with the concept that we have called 60-second onboarding. Will take slightly longer today, but we all know that we can do it in 60. Right now, we are looking on the left-hand side to a public marketing channel from a retail bank. And on the right side, we have our mobile application on our iPhone in this case. So what I would like to do is to get started with the onboarding journey that starts off by asking me for my name. I also need to provide my social security number, which will be automatically validated. And after which I need to provide my email address. Doing this will actually create a prospect account for me so that when I drop off, I can still continue at a later stage simply by providing the email address, potentially a password. But this is the question where it becomes more sophisticated, right? Now we have to provide these documents for Know Your Customer. What is the best way to do so? Well, we can do that on the desktop, upload the documents, quite cumbersome. So why don't we continue on the phone? By selecting that action, I will get a QR code that is generated, and it will allow me to go into my mobile app that I downloaded from one of the app stores. And from there, I can say that I would like to continue with a QR code. Right, so I will scan this QR code on the screen. And from there, we continue the journey. So we pick up the journey where we left off on web, seamless interaction. From there, we are basically embracing these smart scanning technologies. Like you said, as Uber is using AWS for their server environments, we would like to leverage third parties that are specialists in scanning documents and automatically capturing the relevant data that is on there. So that is exactly what I will do. I will scan my driver's license right here in front of me. And instead of filling this information in manually, all I need to do is validate and confirm. So it's super simple. From there, we would obviously also need to verify that the guy on the driver's license was actually me. So that's where we can say, well, let's take a selfie. I get this beautiful overlay. I need to smile probably to prove that I'm a person that's truly alive and not just another picture. And now we have a closed loop of identity verification. We're fully identified and verified. And even the terms and conditions is something that we can do digitally. There's no paper required here, right? So I can read the terms and conditions, press the accept button. And since we have this touchscreen in front of us, it's rather easy to provide your signature in there and sign up for the account. Mm-hmm. So that is quite a difference, right, than having the typical pain points that we just illustrated. So instead of these lengthy forms, we have a conversational style form. We have a seamless transition between web and mobile, leveraging third parties to do the facial recognition or basically automate the Know Your Customer procedures. And even T's and C's we can sign digitally.
So Barry, you're basically saying that the let's say initial overview that I gave from a company like Uber, or actually any other of those modern companies out there, the fact that they're assembling platform capabilities smartly, depending on the regions that they're acting in, that's a similar story as you've shown just now in the demo.
Yeah, exactly. Combine best of breed, right? Mm-hmm. Select the parties that you would like to work with that are leading vendors in your region. Go with those. They know their market and integrate it in consolidated user experience.
Okay.
Yeah, cool. Right. So second scenario, Tim. Mm-hmm. How many apps do you have on your phone that are in regards to banking or financial?
That's almost 10.
10?
Yeah, I think at least 10, yeah.
And why? Why do you have 10 apps?
For multiple use cases, for just daily banking. I have a few challenger banks that I bank with. There's an investment bank that I bank with. It's There's a mortgage bank even, which is a separate application.
Right. So not really one place that you can see everything, right?
No, correct.
Right. So there's not really a financial, an insight in your financial life. You cannot really compare rates between banks. So yeah, you basically don't have one single source of truth.
Correct.
And of course, there's PSD2 coming. There's the open banking initiative coming. So, or it's already going, actually, both of them, and it will solve the situation. But how could that look like? How do you combine that into a nice customer experience? Right. So that is the second example that I would like to show to you. Let's can we close this one?
Yeah,
let's make
this put a full screen.
There you go. So again, a banking app. We can press Face ID to log in with biometrics, and here we have such an aggregated overview. Right now, we just see our current account and our savings accounts within the Backbase retail bank, and we see our aggregated balance. So it's quite easy to, through PSD2 or through open banking, add an external product. So by pressing on that button there in the center, I will go to a chatbot, and instead of doing all these actions manually myself, I will be guided through the process. So the first question is, okay, what bank would you like to add? Well, let's say that I have a credit card at ING. I will press that one. They need to obviously get authorization between ING and the Backbase retail bank to view the products that I have there. So to do that, I will log into the ING app, and I will get an overview of the products that I have there. So we're basically creating a handshake here. I think this is a very common example. You have many of these examples with Facebook to create handshake between platforms. So I will select the credit card and press authorize. We'll go back to the Backbase retail bank, and they will ask me, okay, so this product, would you like to add that to your consolidated overview? And I say, yes, please, because that's exactly why what I would like to show is that now I have my ING, so a third-party bank credit card included in my aggregated overview. So that means one app less. We're down to 9, Tim, in your case. But from here, it's still not very exciting. It's still just adding a product. What will be cool is that based on the information that we currently see on the screen, so the fact that I have spent 1,337 euros with my credit card, yeah, it's not going to be for free, this open balance, right? I'm going to pay some interest there. I also have 4,500 euros on my savings account. So how cool would it be that if I get a notification, that same chatbot identifies this debt that I have, the costs that are corresponding with the debt, and will ask me, like, would you like to settle that amount? So it will say, okay, would you like to settle that from your savings? I answer that with a yes. It will basically start up a payment. So it will make a payment to the ING credit card with that specific amount that is currently open. I again authorize with biometrics, and from there, we will see the debt being decreased, as well as my savings account, unfortunately. But at least it's not costing me 187 euros a month anymore.
Yeah. Cool. So basically you're saying using that application, I would now be able to potentially remove a set of applications from my device. If I would be able to add all my external products there.
Yeah, I mean, 9 is quite much, but let's get it at least down to 2 to 3, right?
Yeah. So I think towards the banking 2025 reality, PSD2 it's enforced, but it's not really adopted yet properly. Same thing for open banking. It's not really there yet, let's say, on a global scale. Would you expect that by 2025, this is very normal for consumers to do?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, PSD2 is already behind schedule, I would say, but it's still something that the government enforces, right? So I'm mostly convinced that it will be there in 2025.
Yeah. I think similarly, you also see it on a global scale that in other regions, a similar, let's say, regulatory implementations being ran. Also in the APAC region, also in the US are similar initiatives. So perhaps this, let's say, futuristic view might actually become reality there.
Yeah, let's hope it's not futuristic and actually there next year already.
Yeah.
So yeah, to come back to the pain points and the solutions that we saw. So we had one consolidated dashboard with different products aggregated. We had a chatbot that was assisting us not only to add those products, but also to make sure that we have advice based on our personal financial situation. Cool. Okay, then let's go to the third. I mean, for Backbase, we travel quite a lot. I would say, right? You also had quite a globetrotter lifestyle until quite recently. So what was the app that you were using every day when you were traveling for Backbase?
Well, next to making phone calls, WhatsApp, and those types of applications, it's certainly Expensify, right, for doing the expense reporting.
Yeah, I feel your pain. It's taking a lot of time. Yeah. And I tried getting a personal assistant, but it wasn't
no, we don't have budget for
in a company policy. So basically, what you would like is to solve pain points such as, first of all, the fact that it takes a long time, goes without saying. But also that you have to go through these different apps, make the pictures, be aware of the fact that you're going to travel, make sure that your MasterCard is actually activated for transactions abroad. So yeah, a couple of pain points again, and guess what? I have a demo to show you how that could be solved.
Okay.
So let's go to this app. Right here, I will once again log in with biometrics, and we will have a similar overview as we saw in previous two apps, right? So here we have, and again, aggregated overview between not only this bank, but also, for example, the Amazon Visa card. And I can even get, that's one step beyond what we just saw, an aggregated personal financial situation scan, whether that is based on income and outcome or spending patterns per category. It's there, but it's not quite smart. It's just providing us with static data, right? So instead, wouldn't it be cool if you could have like actions? So instead of doing everything automated, I'm still a little bit in charge of what I actually do within my banking app, but it's going to be more of a personal assistant than it's going to be my banking app. Because how cool would it be that if you couldn't only make actions in regards to banking, but also in regards to online purchases or Dropbox integration or social media, right? Why set the border at just banking? So that's what you will see in the My Actions menu over here. I have a couple of actions that I personally configured already, right? I can easily activate or deactivate them right here. And if we take your globetrotter lifestyle as an example again, I can go into the digital services hub. And this is where all kinds of third-party services can be aggregated, and they can be made relevant in context of banking, right? So we see Amazon, we also see health-related vendors such as Nike. But yeah, let's make a travel-related action.
Perhaps before we go there, basically what you're saying, Barry, is that the bank is not only focusing on banking services and banking related capabilities, but it's actually taking a real position in your digital life, like my daily life.
Exactly.
Right? So, I mean, you couldn't get a PA, obviously, but this is more like a personal assistant type of white glove treatment. No?
Yeah, exactly. Like the concierge that you have in a hotel. Like if I want to make a reservation at a restaurant, I go to that guy and he will take care of it. He will also book the taxi.
And these providers, this is all, let's say, APIs or?
Yeah, definitely. Because nowadays it's not so strange that a lot of these vendors actually have super nice API documentation on their website. Mm-hmm. It's not rocket science anymore to integrate with third-party vendors, mm-hmm. because everybody is starting to embrace this vision that also, as you said, in Uber and Amazon are embracing by simply including vendors in doing what they do best.
Yeah. Cool. Right. So it's a nice assembly of all these different capabilities from different players, which could potentially come together in a personal assistant app as a bank.
I would love it.
Cool. Yeah. Smart banking, yeah.
Yeah, that's the idea. I think that's the word, smart banking. So let's take the, I need to go to Colombia on Saturday. So let's go into KLM, which is my carrier at that time. What we see here is a list of personalized packages. So these are recipes, if you will, that I can configure. So if, let's go into the first one so that we actually enable travel mode on one of our cards. And by selecting that recipe, I will be able to personally configure, like fill in the blanks. So on top, I can see the different credit cards that I have in this banking app. So I'll select the MasterCard. And 1 hour before my flight, I would like to activate travel mode. And to come back to your example of doing expenses, I can also make automatic expense reports in Expensify, which within Backbase is the tool that we use to do expenses, so that I do not have to do that process manually anymore, right? So I will just say, Yes, please, because it will save me so much time. All that considered, there's a short summary, and by simply pressing on confirm, I will add that action, and from there, I can just activate it and deactivate it.
Amazing.
Yeah, I mean, let's hope that is not far from reality, because that would literally save us hours on our trips.
No.
So what you see here is a couple of solutions to the pain points again. So first of all, there are personalized actions. So users are still in charge of what happens within the banking app, but a lot of it can be done automated. We have a digital services hub that is not only limited to banking anymore, but can include any type of third-party service. Well, as you have seen, it's quite easy to set up these recipes. You do not have to follow a guide to do that. It's quite straightforward. And you will have an aggregated overview of all these actions that are personal to me and relevant.
Yeah. So truly a personal assistant approach that we're looking at here.
Most definitely.
And an Expensify report is one example, but in reality, there could also be recipes. I'm just brainstorming here. Whenever I make an Amazon purchase, send me a quick push notification. If my balance is too high, at the end of the month, why not sweep a certain amount into my savings account? Are those, let's say, options that you would look at?
Yeah, definitely. But also like to motivate yourself doing sports, if you integrate Runkeeper or Nike Plus, right? The moment that you did more than 5K, you will get €5 on your current account from your savings. I'm just making it up, but that could work a similar way.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so then on to my last question for you as well, Tim, or maybe not, but at least like the examples that I want to show you.
Mm-hmm.
When is the last time you lost your credit card?
That's a long time ago, but I did recently have my credit card blocked.
Okay, yeah. So how did that go?
It was Australia, was close to a point of sales terminal which got skimmed, and automatically the network then basically blocks your card, and you're out of card.
Yeah.
You need to pick up the phone and get
Australia.
a new one in Australia. Yeah.
Okay, so quite a cumbersome process, right?
That took me 2 weeks.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, you still will get the card, obviously, per mail. 3D printing is not that far yet.
Yep,
hopefully soon.
Yeah,
will be cool. But then you have to pick up the phone, as you said, dial in, make sure that the card is activated. Any PIN code that you would like to have on it will be assigned by the bank. It's not something that you can configure. And also, like I said at the beginning, you cannot really manage that card from your app. Okay, so then on to the last demo, I would say. Do it. Let's see. There it is. So I'm back to the first app. We're in our closed banking environment. As you can see in the bottom, I have an assigned menu that's called Cards. And in Cards, I can see the different cards, whether they are debit or credit cards, that I have with this bank. The first one is something that I just ordered. So it's something that I still need to activate. But for the cards that are already activated and in use, I can see the credit limit, I can see the available balance, and I can also do certain actions with, like freezing them or putting it on travel mode. So coming back to your example, in case that you were skimmed, probably the freeze card would be activated, but let's say that you need to do an emergency transaction, you can simply get it back, right? You can deblock. So let's take a look at that scenario. If we take the first example to activate it, we got this card by mail. We probably got a second mail or an email in which we had an activation code. So let's provide the activation code. And from that moment, we are now asked to configure our own PIN. So not necessarily one that the bank assigns. So let's go for a super obvious one. Confirm it, then use biometrics to make sure that we are authenticated, and that, as you see, will activate the card, and I will have access to these different kinds of modes or blocking functionality that I can now do from my mobile app. So I can freeze it. If I want to activate it, I need to do Face ID, authenticate it, and there you go.
So again, you get full control directly in your mobile application in this case.
Yes, exactly.
Interesting. So you look at all those demos, Barry, from a, let's say, customer perspective, which one would excite you most if it would be in your banking application?
Definitely the concierge.
The concierge.
Yeah, like taking it beyond banking. And I know that there are some banks in the world that are already doing that to a certain extent, like buying movie tickets, for example, with loyalty points within the bank. But yeah, it would be super cool if you can truly involve other services that are relevant to me in your financial situation.
Yeah. I think you, if you look at the Asian markets, that's one of the markets where it's most popular at this moment.
Yes, yeah.
So banking is actually introduced into the Line Chat app, for instance, or WeChat application. Do you see similar traction in the European market, for instance?
I would say less at this stage, at least. Also because Messenger, Facebook Messenger, or WhatsApp doesn't necessarily come with the capabilities of those two platforms that you just mentioned. But I'm almost sure that it will come in 2025, where we truly are integrated with first of choice chatting platforms that are as well adopted. Because Line Chat, I think 90% of Asia will have Line Chat on their mobile phone. Whereas if you look in Europe, there's not really one platform that has that kind of adoption rate.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's definitely something to follow, I would say, right?
Yes, most certainly, and we will.
We definitely will. All right. Thanks for the demos, Barry.
My pleasure.
Before we move forward, there's a few set of questions I would like to go through from the audience.
Okay.
I think the first question is on compliance. So the question from Leslie is that we get pushback from compliance that customers must be able to agree and establish the ability to accept e-signing docs to do agreements digitally. How can you move past this hurdle?
So the clients are pushing back on providing.
No, it's compliance. Yeah, and it also, I think to that question, Leslie, it effectively depends on the region that this will be implemented into. So effectively, the local rules and regulations dictate what type of steps you have to go through. So for some countries, for instance, in Germany, you have to physically get into a branch to do a final validation. You can't do it end-to-end digital. For other countries, like the Netherlands at this point, you can go fully digital, but also there's a certain set of requirements that you simply just have to oblige to. I think right now what you see is that regulators are more keen to work with the fintech providers and the movers and shakers in the markets, as well as with the, let's say, bigger established brands that are out there that are looking to accomplish similar things. But some hurdles are at this moment just there to deal with. And for instance, to your point on how do we establish the ability to accept eDocs, probably there's a reality where you first need to ask that question, get them to give the consent, and then you can actually improve the customer experience from there onwards. Okay, let's see if there's another interesting question here. There's a question on how do I find a list of fintech vendors that can assist with building this better onboarding experience or any of the other demos that you just showed, which is a question from Derek.
Okay. Well, Derek can go to the open banking marketplace, of course, right? So as Backbase, we have obviously engaged with a lot of these vendors in different areas. So now I show the majority of KYC, but you also have the chatbots, you have the PFM vendors. So all of these vendors are listed on marketplace.backbase.com. So Derek, just have a look there. And if the vendor that you are actually want to engage with is not on that list, just let us know and we will start that engagement from our side in regards to your implementation.
Got it. Okay, then one final question from Azar before I move on to the rest of the webinar. Azar's question is that the number of various solutions is overwhelming. Right? There's so many fintechs out there. There's so many ecosystem players you can actually bring into your value proposition. How do you choose, and which criteria are you using in choosing a technology solution for instance, retail banking?
Right. Well, I think it starts by taking a customer first, right? As you said at the beginning. So in that case, you might not need all of those different vendors, and there might be duplicate vendors. So in that case, it's truly a matter of thinking, what is the functionality that I want to implement in phases, of course? What do I want to start with? Where do I want to be in 2020? Where do I want to be in 2025? And take that roadmap and really, start doing trajectories. Oh my God,
fine, Barry. Take it easy.
to assess the vendors that are relevant in that topic and engage with them one by one to select the best one.
Perfect. Yeah, perhaps if I may add, Barry, the question is partially customer focused, right? Really understanding the journey and the job to be done.
Yeah.
At the same time, I also think that there's a new reality where, as an existing bank with an incumbent business model, you're not just looking at building a new retail banking application anymore.
No.
I think you might want to get a bit more granular, given that you also have competition that is going more granular. Effectively, other propositions are niched out. So if you look at the challenger offerings or the neobanks, they're typically taking a few specific sets of products and really focusing on that very deeply. And I think another, let's say, aspect to understand when selecting fintech providers and making that new assembly is how are you going to really go for a similar customer segment, given that your competition is extremely niched out and super optimized to play in that space. So effectively, I'm saying don't come with a generic answer to a very specific customer problem, which even might mean that you need to rethink the way you deliver applications as an existing banking institution at this moment. And this is a topic we can discuss on for hours, but I hope this clarifies a little bit for Azar. Okay, then there's a lot of questions right now. I suggest to get towards at the end of the webinar and basically focus on the Q&A again then.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, Barry. So crossing the chasm, what do we need to do and what are the ingredients to actually get there? As you can see on the slide, we effectively need a digital-first platform. First of all, if you look at the pillars that I introduced in the beginning of the webinar, we state that there's 4 pillars that we need to, let's say, there's 4 pillars that need to be in place to actually be digital-first and have that digital-first platform in place. I'm going to describe them in order of value drivers. And the first one is to actually move from channel islands to omni-channel. That means that on the left of the slide, you see a typical reality with most of our customers and prospects. Basically, I would say 80 to 90% of the market is looking like this at this moment, where you find that there's a lot of different silos in an existing organization. That means that per product line or per digital channel, there's multiple solutions that actually drive the end customer experience. And basically means that you're siloed and it's not a seamless experience across those different channels that you might have. Where you want to go towards is to actually have and introduce an omni-channel fabric or an omni-channel digital platform, which allows you to have one platform that provides the experiences for any type of digital channel that you might have in your implementations. So that could be the web channel, the mobile channel, the branch channel, the teller channel, the call center channel, and so forth. And all of those channels you want to provide out of one single platform, which gives you certain benefits like reuse, standardization, and a consistent look and feel, given that you abstract away all the complexity from the underlying existing systems. So that's the first value driver that you need to have in place to really digitally transform and go from this channel island reality to truly omni-channel. The second value driver is to go from a monolithic type of application landscape into agile building blocks and to really get the agile speed, not only in the way you organize, but also get it from an architectural perspective. So on the left of the slide, you see that a typical problem is that you have monolithic applications. And the next typical step would be to go for decoupled layers. Let's start decoupling the front-end logic from the back-end logic. But even more so, you're looking to achieve a Lego-style building block architecture, which means that you even more granularly separate out those capabilities so that you can have end-to-end capabilities truly decoupled from all the other, let's say, architectural elements that are in place. This means that you can also start organizing yourselves in these value streams, if you will. For instance, having an end-to-end payments team or an end-to-end onboarding team that can really autonomously drive and deliver value. To do so, you need an agile architecture to be in place. On top of this, ready-to-go accelerators is exactly what the Backbase platform is delivering, meaning you not only get this architecture, which is a Lego-style building block architecture, but on top of this, you get retail, business, wealth banking, and SME banking out of the box and ready to go. So basically, value driver number 2, from monoliths to agile building blocks. Value driver number 3 is that you want to go from friction towards seamless processes. And in this case, the simple example here is that typically to onboard or originate as a new customer, net new customer to bank or get a mortgage or a business loan, it's typically a very cumbersome process, which is mostly automated and not properly digitized. If you, let's say, fix the spaghetti that you see on the left, you will typically find ROIs that are very appealing and very interesting, given that you take away friction from new account opening incomes, or getting customers easily onboard into the solution. So for instance, processing costs could be pushed down by 65% if you properly introduce seamless processes. And many of those ROI elements hold true. And the final value driver is to actually go from mass banking to smart banking. And what you there find is that you want to move from a one-size-fits-all approach, which effectively is the current reality with many of the institutions at this moment. You want to move from that reality into a hyper-individualized reality, which means that you're going to optimize the end user experience uniquely for every user. Are you going to do this in a smart fashion, depending on where they are, the products they have, the let's say, life events that they're currently in, the way they interact with you as a brand, the way they interact with the application, and using that information, you hyper-personalize the experience across any of the digital channels. And one of those, let's say, thought patterns in there is to indeed become the personal assistant towards the bank. All right, so if you put all of that together, it basically leads to the four pillars of a digital-first transformation, where we believe that to be let's say, fully digital first, you need to be omni-channel, you need to be agile in terms of architecture, it needs to be seamless in terms of the journeys and the dialogues that you have on your different digital channels, and it needs to be smart. And smart can be very, let's say, futuristic, where you start leveraging machine learning, AI, and so forth, but at least the thinking should be to really help and personally assist the end customer in their jobs to be done. So this really constitutes the Banking 2025 roadmap and the four pillars that really drive digital first platform. Now, if you simplify this all the way down, the way that Backbase approaches this is basically putting a digital first banking platform on top of all of your existing systems, which allows you to get away from the slower heartbeat that you have with your underlying infrastructure and basically deliver a 10 times better customer experience with a digital heartbeat. The next quick slide I would like to show you is that Backbase ships all of these capabilities out of the box. We already have the ingredients to achieve this particular roadmap. That's also why our customers are obviously working with Backbase. And what you see there is that these journeys like retail banking, SME banking, corporate banking, wealth banking, as well as native mobile applications for all these business lines on both Android as well as iOS are fully available for you to actually kickstart any type of implementation you might have. On top of this, you see that the architecture, if it is truly agile, allows you to reuse these capabilities across the different channels, which truly makes it an omni-channel digital banking platform. We also recently introduced a design system, which is one of the ingredients that you absolutely need to keep your UI designers aligned with your UI engineers, basically making sure that they design and prototype in line with the reality of what you can deliver from an engineering perspective. Below this, all the blue boxes that you see here, these are what we believe the ingredients to actually get to a digital first business model, but then from a technology perspective. So you need a layer to orchestrate the omni-channel customer experience. You need a layer that is your digital banking core, if you will, which we call digital banking services. You need entitlements management. You need your user management to be in place for the digital channels. You need process digitization, which really drives the omni-channel customer dialogues for onboarding, origination, and any type of complex dialogue that you need to drive. And if you look at the right bottom, there is the notion of a fintech marketplace where you really need to embrace the ecosystem that is out there, which sometimes can seem convoluted and hard to deal with because it's so fast moving. But at the end of the day, these capabilities can really bring your value proposition to a certain level and to a certain uniqueness that you will never do on your own, right? So you basically need to open up for that type of thinking as well, which drives totally different and unique value propositions, which, if you're honest, if you look at the neobanks and all the challengers out there in the market that are focusing on specific niches, they are definitely very open to embracing the ecosystem. In order to do that, you need an architecture like the one that you're currently looking at. On top of this, you basically see that we also support the business stakeholder, the left center of this slide. You see that with an experience manager and a so-called studio, you empower business users to actually own the digital channel and own their own digital future by giving them the tools to effectually to effectively manage the experiences. Final few slides, and then we head into Q&A. What you effectively find in this type of platform approach is that you have reusable end-to-end omni-channel digital banking capabilities. That means for any type of job to be done, any type of customer journey you would like to deliver, you effectively look at the different layers that the platform provides and pick and choose the right and relevant capabilities that you need to drive that journey. If you want to go very fast, you basically adopt whatever is already there from a platform perspective. Whether you are or not working with Backbase doesn't matter, but you take whatever you already have in your ecosystem and go really fast, or you extend what might be there from a product perspective or a platform perspective to make it a bit more yourselves, or you truly build on your own. All these three flavors, the Backbase platform and architecture is fully architected for. The real trade-off at the end of the day is time to market or flexibility. So if you want to go super fast, take whatever is already there and go to market in, let's say, 3 months, for instance, with your MVP. If you want all the flexibility, the platform is fully capable of allowing you to do so, but of course, the trade-off is in timing and in investment. I think the next question becomes, how do you execute all of this? That's definitely one of the topics also for Backbase Connect, which is our yearly event, which is happening at the end of October this year. Please check out connect.backbase.com, where we very much welcome your application to be a participant on the event. But just a few nuggets already on, let's say, what we will be looking into at the Connect event. First of all, one of the main topics, of course, is how do you go from digital on the side to actually focusing truly on the digital first part of the population, which will only become bigger over time. How do you define as an organization your North Star vision? And effectively what we're saying as Backbase is that your digital strategy is not just, let's say, taking a digital banking platform and everything is there. No, it's effectively your business strategy, and it impacts your whole business, your business model, your culture, as well as your leadership to actually drive this journey home. You also have to need to make a few decisions, business model decisions. In this case, if you use a platform like Backbase, you basically have business model agility. That means that your game plan could be to just have a digital front end and put that on top of your core systems. Another option be to truly build a digital bank with a super digital modern core, which might be a cloud-based core, and on top of that, leverage the Backbase platform to deliver digital bank. Third option would be to, for instance, be an aggregator, right? We also see that proposition in the market where you don't even hold a banking license potentially, but you do aggregate relevant capabilities into a particular proposition. And the fourth game plan to be to fully transform the bank using, for instance, the Backbase platform, combined with your existing legacy systems, complemented with fintech providers that are out there. So you have to make a lot of different decisions. Finally, and this is definitely one of the main topics for the Connect conference this year, at the end of the day, it's all about execution. So you can have the pillars in place that we discussed so far. You can have the right technology in place, the Backbase platform, for instance, but the reality is that from there onwards, it's all about execution, it's about leadership, and it's all about culture. That doesn't mean you need to act like the big boys that you see on the slide right now, because they're the big boys and have a certain, let's say, mindset already in their organizations. But all of us need to start acting like these leaders are doing there, which is more of a startup-minded mindset to run small experiments and really go fast. So that's it from a webinar perspective. Right now, I would like to open up for Q&A. So Barry, I think you have a massive list of questions here.
Yes, we do.
I would say,
yeah, there's a couple of interesting ones. For example, the examples that we gave were mostly focused around retail banking. Mm-hmm. What are the trends that we as Backbase see in the area of wholesale or commercial banking? Are they expecting a similar experience or?
Yeah, good question. So as Backbase, we're also deeply, let's say, investing in both SME banking as well as corporate banking. And what you see there is that, first of all, you need to have your fundamentals in place, right? Because it's a bit more complex compared to retail banking. So I think entitlements, user management, approval rejection flows, all that baseline work needs to be in place. That we already have out of the product by nature. On top of this, it's more about, again, what are the problems you're looking to solve? And that really goes towards the different users that we typically see in SME banking and corporate banking. That could, for instance, be a CFO that wants to have a mobile application to quickly look at the liquidity of the business, to approve or reject certain high-impact payments or high-impact contracts that they're looking to do. And if you go a bit further, it basically goes towards cash management, right? We see that that's one of the trends where business banks, SME banks, corporate banks are really looking to drive a cash management solution to the market that's modern, that's really addressing the needs of the business owner, allowing them to, for instance, set up their own entitlements, to define the approval workflows, the limits, and so forth. And that management capabilities right now we see in the market being the most urgent push. They're also a bit later to the game than retail banks, but in reality, the same capabilities will kick in. So think of setting up your own actions, your own alerts, your own notifications, given certain liquidity events, given certain payments kick in, given your batch is approved and actually pushed through. Think of introducing third-party capabilities like Xero, right? One of those bigger ERP players, or your what is it? Your well, basically any type of ERP implementation would already be very powerful to just easily configure and click into your implementation. So we see a similar push in that realm as well.
Yeah, I think if I can add something to it, it's like overall, I think people are expecting the same thing, whether that is because they are a retail customer, whether that is because they are corporate banking with you as a bank, or whether they have an investment portfolio. In the end, it's the same people at the other side of the screen. So expectations in regards to setting up smart actions, like you said, won't differ much.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, correct.
Another interesting question is like, okay, so is it the technology or the features that is making the difference in your banking app?
Nice question.
Yeah, I found that one from Nanda. It's an interesting one.
Yeah. So the one doesn't exclude the other. So you need this technology to be in place to actually go this fast and have that flexibility. But in reality, just having the technology in place doesn't give you any value, right? So at the end of the day, it's about what are the actual business applications that you're delivering, what customer problems are you solving, and for that, you really need to deliver journeys that are relevant, right? And only if you start doing that, you're having an impact. And you will see that in your Net Promoter scores, you'll see it in your onboarding numbers. That's when you really start, let's say, making a difference. I think you need both, but the real impact, of course, is with driving real journeys.
Yes, I totally agree. Yeah, and then there's a lot of questions around whether we are sharing the slide decks or whether that will be a recording of this webinar. Can you mention something about it?
Yeah, sure. Both the slides as well as the recording will be shared online. It will be published tomorrow, and it will also be sent out via email to anyone who participated in the webinar.
Great. I think that.
Shall we do a final question before we move on?
Oh, you saw a good one?
Yeah, of course. Why not?
Well, there are many, but
that's good. Pop. Yeah, perhaps. How do you see these topics more globally, right?
Right.
Do you see specific trends in specific regions looking at this?
Well, I'm not sure actually if it differs much.
Well, you travel a lot, right? So
yeah,
you've been to all the different markets. Which market would you say, which region right now is standing out most in terms of innovative new banking applications and banking capabilities?
I think Europe is doing quite well with all the neobanks that are like Numbers 26 or Revolut, like they are doing really well here in the area. But it's a different way of banking than if you would compare it to Asia, for example, because the way that line, again, coming back to that example, is integrated there, it goes beyond our comprehension of possibilities.
Yeah.
Like they are, I think, the pioneers in truly aggregating financial data with any other type of data that will help you to get this assistant-like experience that we talked about.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
I would agree. Yeah, definitely. I think it's good to see all the push from the different regions and to compare notes on that. Perfect. Okay. Thanks, Barry, for joining in.
Yeah,
pleasure.
Pleasure.
Perfect. Thanks everyone on the phone and on the webinar for joining in. Thanks for all the questions. There's still a lot of outstanding questions, but given time, we have to wrap it up. As mentioned, we will share the slides. We will share the recording later. And for now, I would say thanks for dialing in and see you at the next webinar. Thanks, everyone.